What's Gucci, everyone? It's Asia here again, and actually this is going to be kind of an interesting video of something I decided to make, and it's going to be how to do what I think is convenient testing in Ruby. And if you don't know Ruby, you probably shouldn't be watching this video, but I like Ruby a lot. It's a very programmer happy language, meaning it's made with the issue of making the programmer very happy and making it very concise and readable. And that's why I like it a lot. And without further ado, let's get going. So this video is going to focus around testing. So we're going to quickly make a class here to test. So right now I have a tennis player, and a tennis player has a score, and I'm going to set their score initially to 0, and then it has the opponent's score, and I'm going to set that equal to 0 too. And then so if I want to say, I guess instead of tennis player, I'll call this tennis match, because that's what it's a tennis matchup. So I'll say, and then I'll initialize those scores in the beginning, and then if I want to make another method saying, I score, and saying, home scores, I will, and in that, and then, so what I'll do is I'll do at score plus equal 1, and then I'll make a def that says opponent scores, essentially, and I'll do at up score plus equal 1. Okay, so now we're going to go into testing here. And so with testing here, we're going to need some cool gems. And the gems we're going to need are pretty, let me save this file first, test.rb. And then, so right now we're gonna acquire a few gems here. So first things we're gonna acquire is we're gonna acquire the shoulda gem. And so if you don't have the shoulda gem installed, simply go into your terminal, and if you should know this if you've ever done Ruby, and you can do gem install shoulda. You need to have Ruby installed. If you don't, then I suggest Googling it. But just do gem install shoulda, click enter, and it'll be good. And then you want to do another you want to install another gem, and that's going to be Minitest and Minitest / outer run, and this is going to be able to easily outer run our tests. And I spelled that wrong, I noticed that. And also something you need to do is we're going to require relative here, and what require relative is going to do is it's going to load our tennis file. And note how you don't need to have the RB if you've never done require relative before. And so now we're going to make a class, and we're going to call it test tennis match, and then it's going to inherit from test, which is the one we loaded, and it doesn't seem to like that a lot. Let me take a look at that test. And so Minitest test, and like at the end of every class, we need an end bracket to kind of indicate that's the end of it. And so this is our basic setup here to test something. Now, the really cool thing about the shoulda and Minitest frameworks here that we're going to use is they make testing really convenient and kind of solid. So the one thing we can do here is we can set up a context, and by setting up a context, I can say, hey, so I can make different testing situations in different testing contexts, and I can also build upon those contexts to make more increasingly difficult scenarios, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to make a context, and it's just going to be saying, I'll just call it play tennis match, and then within this context I got to have a do keyword, and let me have an end right here. And so that's all I'm going to have for this basic context. And then within this context, we're going to have to set up everything. The context before we need to kind of have a way of setting up how we do everything within our testing service. And the way we're going to do that is with the setup method. So with the setup method, we can kind of set up, how we want everything to go right here. And looking at our tennis match class, we need to set up a tennis match.new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call tennis match.new and set it equal to the instance variable match. And so what this is going to do is every time a test is run, and we haven't made a test yet, but we're about to, we call this setup method so that every test is kind of a fresh start, and we always know which state it's in. So if I wanted to make sure my test was in a certain state, I could do that. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a kind of text context. So I'm going to have the keyword should, which is why we need our should gem, and I say should player be up by 1. And then it's going to have do, and now we're going to have end here. And by doing this, we can now assert our tests. By assert our test is that I can use test methods that can be used in any other testing framework like the assert equal method. And so simply, I forgot to do what I really want to do. So I'll make a def score, and what score will do is it will return the string. It will return a string of, oh god, it already did that for me. It will return a string of the scores here. So it will return the @score, and it will return the opponent score. And I forgot to put an @ here. So it's going to return a string of the @score and the opponent score. So I'm going to assert equal that the score is 1 to 0 when the first test I'm going to do, is I'm going to assert that the score is 0, 0 when the match object is simply scoring, because I'm going to call score and the tennis match object, has just been initialized. And so simply I should be able just to call that and see that my score is correctly initialized. So let's run this file here. And let me do some quick magic here, blah, blah, blah. And so now I'm going to go into RubyMine projects. And once I go into RubyMine projects, I'm going to go into sandbox, and then I'm going to go, and now I'm going to run this. So I'm going to run this like anyone runs the Ruby way. And so I'm going to do that by doing ruby test.rb. And so what happened now is that indeed I was able to run these tests. So that dot means it ran one test and that it actually passed. Let me show you what happens when the test doesn't pass. So let me add something to the string. So I'm saying it's 0 to 10 right here. And I ran it, and it tells me it failed here. And then it tells me what it expected and what actually it was printed. So tennis match should play be up by 1. So as you can see here, what happened is it took these two strings because they were nested with it, these two tests, these contexts, and nested them in with each other. So it kind of, it evaluates, and if you word it correctly, it evaluates a nice string, kind of telling you humanistically what went wrong, which is pretty awesome. So this is a pretty cool way to be able to see how things kind of move up all the time. And so something you also can do is so that I had one context, and then player has scored. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another context and show you kind of the true power of this testing framework, because now I set up a simple test, but now let's say I have another context here, and I say player has scored, and now I'm going to do another setup method, and I'm going to do that, and what we're going to do here is that, so now I have two setup methods, and I'm going to do match dot, let's do op score, right? Yeah, let's do op scores here. So I'm gonna do the setup method for this context will be that the opposition scores, and now I'm gonna say should opposition should be up by 1. And so now I forgot the do, but let's put the end right there for a second. And yeah, let's make sure those all match. And then so after that, then I can simply do another kind of assert equal method, and then I can assert that the string is 0-1, and then I'm going to have @match dot scores. And let me change this back to 0, 0. And does everything look good? No, I think I need an S there. And so now let's run these tests again. Hopefully I did not make a big mistake. And so now, as you can see, I have both of these tests pass, and this is going to be the end of the coding portion of this video, but now I'm going to quickly explain everything again. So with these two gems, you can quickly create kind of really awesome testing that I like. And what I'm allowed to do here is I can create a context and I can kind of say, you know, what is the overall category of this test. So maybe if I want to split up my tests even more, I can create different contexts. But what I can also do is I can have setup contexts. And so setup is run before every test. But even within each context, you can nest context and make sure certain things happen. So in this case, when I run this test, it goes to the outermost context, play tennis match, and sets up a new tennis match. Then it runs this test to make sure it happens with this match object created, with the new tennis match object created. But then it goes inside this player has scored context, and what it does is it runs this setup, but then it will run at match.opscores. So now I've increased the op score of the match. So that's pretty cool. So now I've kind of set up this whole slew of tests. So now I could create another inner test where, for instance, say I have home score, so then it should be 1-1. But I don't need to, I don't need to add that to every setup. So I can kind of have an incremental setup or see how things keep on going. And also you can edit match inside these should methods if you want. But it's really cool how you can kind of cascade things, or you can separate things really easy within this testing framework. And that's why I really like Ruby. I know this video is long, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have the best day of your lives.